Ivy, let's talk about your cyclocross season, because you're kind of like, you've been on the opposite schedule as so many of us, where in the summer you weren't racing that wasn't the peak of your season. Instead, now is the peak of your season. So first of all, have you met podcast listeners at the races?
Yes, quite a few. Well, I hear a lot of them on the sidelines. And then they like say like, oh, I love you on the podcast, and they're cheering and it's great. And then I'm like, oh man, I hope they come say hey after the race. And then they disappear. I don't know. So I've only met a couple, and I love meeting podcast listeners. So if you are at any of the races the rest of the season, please don't be afraid to come say, hey, I'm nice. I'm not like, who hurt you? Like, who has traumatized these podcast listeners to be afraid to come say, hey, please come say, hey, it's awesome meeting you guys.
Yeah. Ivy is one of the more approachable pro athletes that you'll find in the paddock. Ivy likes to have a good time. And good chats. She won't say no to a bubbly water after the race. Good times. So, all right, I want to talk about this. So early in the season, you were struggling. You weren't satisfied with your results, because building up to the races, you were like flying and you were doing really well. Your training was going fantastic. You were nailing your marks. How'd you handle that? Like going to those first few, because this is relatable for a lot of listeners. You go into the season and then you're struggling more than you thought. So how did you mentally manage all that?
Not well at first. It was really bad. To be honest, I think the biggest struggle was just like being kind to myself. And the reality was I'm the kind of racer that really needs to race into fitness. And those kinds of race efforts, especially the cross, like are really hard to duplicate outside of like a controlled race setting with other racers, like with 40 some other bike racers, and like starting at the back, and you just can't emulate it, especially like the mental aspect of having to be like, all right, it's random call ups, I'm at the back, like gotta try to get up there. Like you can't, it's hard to practice that until race day. So I wasn't very kind to myself for the first few blocks, or first few races in the block. And I luckily have a lot of great peers that I race with, and a lot of good mentors that help me focus on some process goals, less results-based goals that have kind of helped me change my perspective a little bit. And as a result, having more fun and getting better results and feeling better about it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. It's kind of funny, right, Chad, how fun always tends to coincide with improvement. And I know it's like a chicken or egg sort of thing, but if you can adopt that mindset beforehand, it seems to really better your odds, right?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to enjoy a race when you're just struggling or you don't have confidence in your capabilities
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about like mud? And because you had some really muddy races, and you live in Montana, you're from Montana. That's and I don't know if you have, like, for us, we just don't ride in the mud here, whether we're wusses or it's because the clay is just so bad in our region that you really can't ride in it if it's wet. Do you have a lot of experience riding in the mud, and did that catch you off guard, and because you've done well actually in some of the mud races this year?
Yeah, and especially coming from my road background, I didn't think that riding in the mud was my time to shine. I don't know. But yeah, we, like the other racers and I were talking about, like, those conditions are like impossible to emulate as well. You can't just go find, like, especially once it starts getting ridden in, and like a big part of those courses is not just like riding on a wet course, it's how the course rides after like all of the other hundreds of racers have ridden on it all day, and like how it gets packed in, and you can't practice those things, so I think riding in the mud a little bit for me, I think practicing riding in the sand helped me a lot. Once you like make that connection of finding the balance of like letting go of your bike and letting it steer itself a little bit while still being in control, so much of that is riding in sand. And I think it applies pretty directly to riding in mud. So I think that's why I did well on those days, because I practiced riding in the sand quite a bit, being in Sacramento. And that's like one of the more easily findable features to practice. So, I mean, also part of it was just being fed up with not doing well and just being like, all right, we got to do it. Like, I just gotta go. Yeah. The combination of those things. And yeah, good part of riding in mud too is like, I'm not very prideful in knowing like when I'm going too slow, it's just time to get off and run. I don't like muscle things out just for the sake of being like, well, you can ride it. Doesn't mean that you should, like, you're still moving slowly, or not as quickly as you should. And momentum when you're riding in mud or sand or technical conditions is so important in cyclocross. And I think I did a pretty good job of knowing when to call it and just get off my bike. And there was a lot of running in those races, but it worked out.
Can we also cover a bit of like the dissonance that exists between what a lot of us assume cyclocross pacing is like versus what it is like? And this might vary for you. Just speaking with like Tobin, Orton Blad, and speaking with other like cyclocross racers that are really good. Courtney McFadden is another example of one that we've spoken with, that they say that it's less punch all out coast, and it's more like in the beginning of the race, yes, it can be like that, but then it kind of settles in at like a constant pace. Is it less stochastic like that, Ivy? And is it more stable than we might think in terms of what your pacing is like throughout a race?
I think that completely depends upon the course, what kind of rider you are, where you're starting. Like for someone like Tobin or someone that's starting on the front row and you're never racing around more than like 3 or 4 people at a given time because you have a really good start and you're on the front row. And once that A group goes, like they're just gone. It's just a few of them. Like, of course it's more like even, you're just like racing a few people. You guys are the front of the race. You don't have any like real ground to make up. You're watching each other. Like staying smooth is the most advantageous way for them to ride versus someone that's like starting at the back and seeing all these disconnected groups of 3 and 4 riders ahead of you. You oftentimes have to decide when to like get out of the saddle and when to punch it and then when to chill in order to make up ground. If you're just like riding steady, you can end up dragging a whole bunch of people around. That other group will get away from you. It totally depends upon what kind of rider you are, where you're positioned in the race, and how to capitalize on those things.
So the majority of racers are not in that position that you talked about, where it's like, cool, I'm going to be one of the riders that dictates the pace at the front of the small group. The majority of us are the ones that are part of the fragmented shrapnel behind them.
Fighting for our lives.
Yeah. And that's why you have to train that ability in cyclocross, right? That's why you have to be able to do off and on. Also, like a lot of courses, depending on your threshold and depending on your skills and ability to maintain speed, a lot of courses are simply going to force you to go really hard for like repeated times over the course of a lap.
Yeah. And a lot of the course features too don't really allow you to like stay stable and mellow. Like the folks making the courses are getting creative and it's like pretty cruel actually. But yeah, that's a big part of it too, is it's sometimes impossible just to like keep it steady. You just have to expend more energy and be able to react and settle in and not let it impact your race too much when you have to burn a big match.
So something I found during Cape Epic, I'm such a creature of habit, and we had to like move accommodations, and it really like it was chaotic, and they weren't in place, and then they were in place, and then they weren't in place, and we had to find a plan B, and that sort of stuff really throws me off. Now I look at your situation though, and actually I did this during that time, and I was like, oh wow, like I need to not complain, because Ivy's just been on the road for a long time, living in host housing and then joining up with certain riders and then joining up with other riders, depending on the race and who's going to be there. How do you not let all that stuff affect you in terms of just like, because your circumstances are constantly changing, yet you're expecting yourself, or hoping at least, that you can perform consistently well at all these races, but everything else is changing. Is there anything that you found to help help you perform on race day in a consistent manner, even though everything else is changing?
I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. It's being like a cyclocross orphan, and I don't know if like folks know this, not really, like traveling and having multiple bikes and like multiple sets of wheels and all this equipment, like it's not like rolling up to a summer crit or like traveling to like a crit in the summer where you could travel with a backpack. Like it's crazy, all the logistics surrounding it. And there's so many of us racing this year that like we have our sponsors and we're professionals, but we're on our own, and having to like work together and team together to travel to and from all these races across the country. And it's tricky and complicated and feeling displaced and trying to like work on my hotspot in a van on a weekly basis. Like all of it really takes a toll. And I'm still trying to figure out how to not let that stuff get to me too much, and how to still prioritize taking care of myself, making sure that I'm eating and sleeping when I should. And yeah, I still haven't figured out completely how to not take it all into the race day. Yeah. Anyone has tips, fire them my way, please.
Yeah, I don't have any tips for it. Chad, have you, I mean, you did plenty of racing where you were, you know, traveling around to different races and doing that sort of stuff with teams. I don't know if you have any tips that you've found over the years.
No, we always had pretty cush accommodations and everything was structured pretty nicely. I had the good fortune of racing on teams that they were masters teams almost always. In fact, they always were. So they had the benefit of experience, connections. So most things went smoothly. It was quite nice. But this does remind me, I would often watch Jeremy Powers and I'm trying to think of Tim Johnson and even Stephen Hyde, guys who are super strong in the United States, and they travel over to Europe and they kind of get spanked. And a lot of the times I would hear them in interviews talk about how difficult it was to manage all the unfamiliarities and all these logistical challenges that Ivy's describing, and then still have to put their game faces on and be completely ready to give 100% when 100% just isn't available. I mean, it's 10, 15% of it, whatever it is, has been siphoned off by these minor challenges that don't really even have anything to do with bike racing.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I think that's that might be why you see the playing field a bit more leveled when cross country Olympic rounds come over to the US. It doesn't seem like they're quite as, they still dominate in most cases, but they're not quite as dominant perhaps as other ones like that. I don't know. Yeah, it is tough. It's absolutely something to consider. Brandon, you should talk to Brandon and Sophia. They seemed like they were completely unbothered by the entire situation when we were at Cape Epic. Like Brandon could just do anything. It doesn't matter if they told him that he had to sleep even without a tent that night, he'd figure it out. It would work just fine. He'd still be climbing at like 5.5 watts per kilo. So I
need to figure out how to just be like generally more unbothered, I think is the trick.
More chill.
Yeah. But I was talking to some folks about like process goals in cross and like trying to have fun, and you should have fun. Like with any discipline of racing, like you should try to have fun, but you still have to care a little bit. Like obviously, like because you're still a competitor and you're still there to compete. And so it's like with all this stuff about like being in transit and being displaced and not being able to like sleep well and like eat enough, and like you still have to care about that stuff because it still really matters. So you can't like totally disassociate and pretend that it doesn't matter, because it does. And so maybe that's why I'm having a hard time, is because those things do matter. But how do I be zen and chill about it? It's hard. I feel bad that I don't have better advice.
Hey, transparency is extremely valuable too, because somebody else is thinking that they're the only ones that struggle with this. And this is helping somebody when they traveled to that one big race that they did this year and they just didn't feel like they had everything in place and they didn't perform well. Well, you're not the only one. Like it happens to Ivy. It happens to everybody at the highest levels down to the lowest levels of the sport. It's what it is. It's a struggle. So I'm just excited to have you racing this season. That it's just fun. I love seeing your stuff on Instagram. You should follow Ivy on Instagram, by the way. Go check her out. So you can cheer her on throughout her cyclocross race season. Is your goal to go to, we have Worlds over here this year, or I should say next year. So is your goal to try to qualify for that? I don't know how many riders we're fielding and even what that process is like.
Yeah, that's a little out of reach for me, John.
Right. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. For the World Cups too, as US as the host, we could have 12 riders. And so that was a early season goal for me, to be in the top 12 in the US to be able to go to those. But it's a crazy fast year. Like, we're talking about it the other day, but like any position of riders between like 5th place and 25th place can change in any which direction, like on the same weekend, like between 2 days. Like, it's just a really fast year, and everyone's really, really capable. So yeah, Worlds is not a goal at this time. I'd be sick to go. I might go and drink beer and high five people, but that's probably it.
Yeah. Part of me wants to go to that too. That would be fun to go see when a world championship comes to your country. I know the US is a big country, but still it'd be cool to go for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.